The Decline of Relationships by Richard M. Weaver. It is inevitable that the decay of sentiment should be accompanied by a deterioration of human relationships, both those of the family and those of friendly association, because the passions for immediacy concentrates upon the presently advantageous. After all, there is nothing but sentiment to bind us to the very old or to the very young. Burke saw this point when he said that those who have no concern for their ancestors will, by simple application of the same rule, have none for their descendants. The decision of modern man to live in the here and now is reflected in the neglect of aging parents, whom proper sentiment once kept in positions of honor and authority. There was a time when the elder generation was cherished because it represented the past. Now it is avoided and thrust out of sight for the same reason. Children are liabilities. As man becomes more immersed in time and material gratifications, belief in the continuum of race fades, and not all the tinkering of sociologists can put homes together again. It is sometimes said when this point is brought up that urban living renders relationships of the older kind impossible. There can be little doubt of the truth of that proposition, but the very fact that it is put forward as apologia is an evidence of perversity. For motive is the decisive thing, and had our view of the world remained just, congested urban living, harmful in many other ways too, would not have become the pattern. The objectification in sticks and stones of our conception of living can hardly be pleaded as a cause of that conception. When people set the highest value on relationships to one another, it does not take them long to find material accommodations for these. One is dealing here, as at every other point, with our estimate of the good life. In Megalopolis, the sentiment of friendship wastes away. Friends become, in the vulgarism of modern speech, pals, who may be defined as persons whom your work compels you to associate with, or, on a still more debased level, persons who will allow you to use them to your advantage. The meeting of minds, the sympathy between personalities, which all cultured communities have regarded as part of the good life, demand too much sentiment for a world of machines and a false egalitarianism, and one detects even a faint suspicion that friendship, because it rests upon selection, is undemocratic. It is this type of mentality which will study with perfect naivete a work on how to win friends and influence people. To one brought up in a society spiritually fused, what I shall call the metaphysical community, the idea of a campaign to win friends must be incomprehensible. Friends are attracted by one's personality, if it is of the right sort, and any conscious attempt is inseparable from guile. And the art of manipulating personalities obviously presumes a disrespect for personality. Only in a splintered community, where the spirit is starved to the point of atrophy, could such an imposture flourish. When the primordial sentiments of a people weaken, there invariably follows a decline of belief in the hero. To see the significance of this, we must realize that the hero can never be a relativist. Consider for a moment the traditional soldier, not one of the automatons that comprise modern armies, as hero. It may at first seem paradoxical to say that he is of all members of the laity farthest removed from pragmatism. Yet his is an absolute calling. Give him prudential motives, and he at once turns into a Falstaff. His service is to causes which are formulated as ideals, and these he is taught to hold above both property and life, as ceremonies of military consecration make plain. One sees this truth well exemplified in the extreme formalization of the soldier's conduct, a formalization which is carried into the chaos of battle. A well-drilled army moving into action is an imposition of maximum order upon maximum disorder. Thus, the historical soldier is by genus not the blind, unreasoning agent of destruction, which some contemporary writers make him out to be. He is rather the defender of the ultima ratio, the last protector of reason. Any undertaking that entails sacrifice of life has implications of transcendence, and the preference of death to other forms of defeat, to the fate worse than death, is, on the secular level, the highest example of dedication. There seems little doubt that the ancient solidarity of priest and soldier, a solidarity becoming impossible today now that mechanized mass warfare has removed soldiering from the realm of ethical significance, rests upon this foundation. In addition, the disappearance of the heroic ideal is always accompanied by the growth of commercialism. There is a cause and effect relation here, for the man of commerce is by the nature of things a relativist. His mind is constantly on the fluctuating values of the marketplace, and there is no surer way for him to fail than to dogmatize and moralize about things. Business and sentiment do not mix, is an adage of utmost significance. It explains the tendency of all organic societies to exclude the trader from positions of influence and prestige. It accounts, I am sure, for Plato's strictures on retail merchants in the Laws. The empirical character of British philosophy cannot be unrelated to the commercial habit of a great trading nation. Some forms of sentiment, deriving from our orientation toward the world, lies at the basis of all congeniality. Vanishing, it leaves cities and nations mere empirical communities, which are but people living together in one place, without friendship or common understanding, and without capacity, when the test comes, to pull together for survival. On the other side is the metaphysical community, suffused with a common feeling about the world, which enables all vocations to meet without embarrassment and to enjoy the strength that comes of common tendency. Our plea, then, must be to have back our metaphysical dream, that we may save ourselves from the sins of sentimentality and brutality. Does not its absence explain why the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity? Without this grand source of ordering, our intensities turn to senseless affection and drain us, or to hatreds and consume us. On the one hand is sentimentality, with its emotion lavished upon the trivial and the absurd. On the other is brutality, which can make no distinctions in the application of its violence. Ages which have borne reputations for cruelty are more to be regarded than those renowned, as ours is coming to be, for brutality, because cruelty is refined and, at least, discriminates its objects and intentions. The terrible brutalities of democratic war have demonstrated how little the mass mind is capable of seeing the virtue of selection and restraint. The refusal to see distinction between babe and adult, between the sexes, between combatant and non-combatant, distinctions which lay at the core of chivalry, is determination to weld all into a formless unit of mass and weight. This is the destruction of society through brutality. The roar of the machine is followed by the chorus of violence, and the accumulation of riches to which states dedicated themselves is lost in a blind fanaticism of destruction. Those who base their lives on the unintelligence of sentimentality fight to save themselves with the unintelligence of brutality. The only redemption lies in restraint imposed by idea, but our ideas, if they are not to worsen the confusion, must be harmonized by some vision. Our task is much like finding the relationship between faith and reason for an age that does not know the meaning of faith.